A very good morning to you. Welcome to the show. This is Morning Express. It's always a pleasure to have you with us as we get to kickstart your day in style. I'm Jesse Rogers. Welcome to the broadcast.
And I'm Trix Ngado. Welcome as well. Of course, today, as usual, we'll take a look at the politics, but today we're focusing on the economy, the Building Bridges initiative, and at the same time, some of the political realignments we're expecting to see in the next few months that will be shaping what will be the governance of the country after 2022, and youth agenda also features somewhere in there, so stay tuned for that. And remember, we do value your feedback. Get on Twitter, be a part of the conversation. I am at Trix Ngado. The hashtag to use is KTN Morning Express, and I'm at the Jesse Rogers Trix. One thing was notable yesterday during the burial ceremony of the late former minister Nyachai right there. No politics. That's quite encouraged even as we speak about politics today. Yes, because it seems like funerals are always the platform that people choose to be, of course, dishonorable in their behavior. We have seen in the past few months that rolling out, but of course that was a good example, and hopefully that is a side of things to come, because at the end of the day it's all about the family and we are trying to grieve with them, not to use them. Exactly. Yeah. Well, that's quite the point. Even as we note that particular final send-off, we also note that Haji, the senator, the former senator right there, who did pass on just yesterday and was laid to rest as well. We'll definitely highlight on the various developments highlighted in the dailies. But before we do that, let's take a look at regional matters right now. We begin with the Daily Monitor, the latest from Uganda, even as Museveni's aide asks for unmarked guns. That's one of the stories emanating from Uganda. And despite President Museveni's June 2018 directive that all guns be fingerprinted to stem abuse or use by criminals, this is quite interesting, even as security quiet on abductees despite Museveni's order. Get the latest from Uganda highlighted on the Daily Monitor. Let's take a look at other pages as well. Over to the Citizen, the latest from Tanzania. Magufuli highs in transforming Tanzania's transport sector. Now, improving the marine transport sector is one of the pledges that were enshrined in the manifestos of the voters in terms of the Chama cha Mapinduzi party in 2015. Over to the New Times, another 15 megawatts to be extracted from Lake Kivu methane gas by June. The latest from Africa. Get more details on that. Over to the East African. Rwanda Air picks Accra as hub for flights to the United States. This as Rwanda's national carrier targets West African market in its bid to make the competitive New York route. Also more in terms of CNN highlighting the latest from World News. One contractor killed and one U.S. service member injured in a rocket attack in Iraq. Get the latest in terms of national news right there, just highlighting some of the stories that have been touched on various websites right there. Let's take a look at the latest on the dailies right now in terms of what has been highlighted on the Standard, the Daily Nation, and perhaps the Business Daily. Already joining me in studio, Sam Atandi, who's a Member of Parliament for Alego Songa. Many thanks for your time and good morning. Yes, also joined by James Gakuia, who's the Member of Parliament for Embakasi North. Good morning, sir.
Morning, sir.
Well, welcome. Let's start with the latest that has been covered on the Standard, and it goes without saying. The front page, a splash on Mohamed Yusuf Haji, the former senator who many will remember as chairing the BBI team and also serving as a two-term senator for Garissa County. Quite an instrumental figure, both in public and private life. I'll start with you, perhaps. Just your, how you remember him, Sam Atandi. What would you highlight as some of the major talking points when we speak about the late Mohamed Yusuf Haji?
Thank you, Rogers. Let me begin by saying that it's an honor for me to be back to KTN studio this morning.
Yes.
I think it's been a while since I was here last. And let me say that if there's anything that the President of the Republic of Kenya and the Prime Minister did, the best thing that they did was to appoint Haji as the chairman of the Building Bridges Initiative. I think this is one of the things that Kenyans remember more about Haji. And as you know, Building Bridges Initiative was purely for the purposes of bringing Kenyans together and creating a constitutional reform process that would ensure that Kenyans achieve, in a nutshell, unity of purpose. And so Haji, if you look at his background, Haji is a man who served this country in various capacities in the civil service successfully, and then joined politics. And even in politics, Haji has been a man who's been a man that brings peace. There is no scenario in politics where Haji has been associated with creation of animosity. And so I think Haji is a man who will be remembered as somebody who played a pivotal role in the development of this country.
Okay. Well, that's really proper, and many have also hailed his time as the provincial commissioner, definitely looking over Rift Valley during a tough time, and also quite instrumental in bringing the Kenyan Somalia community closer home in terms of the relations with the Kenyan brothers and sisters. James Gakuia, what's your memory of the late senator, perhaps?
Thank you. First, I would say that let the old man rest in peace. He has done a lot, and he will be remembered by many. Some of us, when we were growing, Haji was still an administrator, and I remember him being very strong PC during the Moi era. It was, I can remember him as one of the toughest PC within the Republic of Kenya, and especially in that particular region of Rift Valley. Further to that, he has been also known as a politician, because as he retired from administration, he joined politics, and he is known as a contributor in terms of Senate contributions towards peace in the Republic of Kenya. He has been brokering peace between Somalia and this particular country, and therefore, I would say he has been very strongly known as a peacemaker.
Well, that's quite true. Yeah, we had a chance to speak to Kenneth Lusaka, the Speaker of the Senate, yesterday, just echoing what the Standard on page 5 mentions, the jewel of politics and voice of reason in the Senate. Of course, more information touching on the late senator on the front pages of the Standard up to page 5. So do grab yourself a copy just to get yourself acclimatized to what's ongoing. Over to page 7, something touching on the judiciary. The JSC opposes a case to have Justice Mwilu step aside. Now, the Lady Justice is seeking to have the case dismissed, citing witch hunt. This coming even as the JSC wants the court to throw out a case filed in Meru, seeking to have the acting Chief Justice step aside as it hears petitions against her. I think it would be proper to note the fact that Sama Tandi, she hasn't forwarded her name in terms of succeeding David Maraga as Chief Justice. As we build up on that, what do you make of her claims that this might be a witch hunt?
Well, Rogers, I think this case for Deputy Chief Justice Mwilu is very unfortunate. Because you remember when the presidential petition elections in 2017 was overturned by the Supreme Court, there were political undertones, and there were promises that somebody would visit, that it would be revisited. So I've always held the view that Justice Mwilu is one of the people who are suffering for a decision which was taken by the Supreme Court to overturn the presidential election. And I think I say that is the situation, which is very unfortunate. Because if you look at the cases that have been filed against Justice Mwilu, you know, they are basically witch hunt. You know, they are witch hunt. So I think I want to applaud the Judicial Service Commission for rejecting blackmail, you know, for trying to interfere with the independence of the judiciary, because we believe the judiciary is independent. And if you look at even the way she was arrested, you know, it was not procedural. There is no way a police was going into the court, into the Supreme Court and arresting the Deputy Chief Justice. And even if you look at the order that was recently given to stop her from continuing with her duties as Deputy Chief Justice in a lower court, that again was irregular. So I think we need to ask political players in this country to allow some of these independent institutions to operate normally so that they can be able to deliver to Kenyans. Justice Mwili was essentially the one to take over from Justice Maraga. But of course, all these innuendos, you know, could not allow her to submit her application for the position of Chief Justice. But I think, given that that has not happened and she has not finished her term as DCJ, I think she should be allowed to continue with her duties as Deputy Chief Justice. And I want to urge the Judicial Service Commission to resist attempts by external forces to interfere with its independence.
Okay. James Gakuia, it would be proper to note that the 4 cases filed in terms of the removal of the Deputy CJ actually meant to be settled in order to avert a looming crisis. What do you make of this whole process, touching on the judiciary, even as the JSC has kickstarted the process to replace the former Chief Justice, David Maraga?
My take in this, I would just concur with my panelists that we need not to be seen putting a finger of which hand in this kind of process. DCJ, at her capacity, automatically requires to be the interim Chief Justice for a time when that particular position is vacant until when the Chief Justice will be appointed. And therefore, having been the Chief DCJ, it tells you that, in fact, he has the capacity to handle that position. Anybody else who has a different idea should first dispel her from her position, so that he can be relinquished from that particular position, and therefore does not automatically become one to temporarily hold that particular position. My take is that anybody or whoever is pushing this particular angle should at least take a break and give the process at least time to materialize and mature the appointment of the new Chief Justice. It is very clear that actually she has not submitted herself to replace the Chief Justice, and therefore she's just there as an interim. And therefore, that interim capacity, I believe, since she's in office, it is admissible to her.
Okay.
That in this country, even though the Constitution has created some independent commissions, if you look at those commissions, the way they operate, essentially there is no commission which is independent, because most of the commissions that we have still answer to the whims of the executive. I think the presidency is still very powerful, that you hardly find a commission which is purely independent that can execute its mandate without referring back to the presidency.
Which commission are we referring to right now?
We have around 4 independent commissions. We have the Parliamentary Service Commission, we have the Judicial Service Commission, we have the Salaries and Remuneration Commission. We even have, even if you look at the way the office of the DPP operates, again, that is not even an independent commission. Because you find that, you know, the DPP recently said that he wanted to prosecute some corruption cases, but he was still waiting for the presidency to give him the go-ahead, you know. So we really need to create, we need to make these commissions to be independent. I don't know whether they are not independent because of the persons that have been appointed in those offices. But in my view, I think we need to get to a situation where we have clearly a truly independent commission that are able to execute their mandate without looking at who is looking at them behind, without looking at the back.
And it also extends to separation of powers as well, legislative, judiciary, and executive, and all that, yeah?
I think that it is everybody's, you know, you have to, as a commission, you need to just remain independent and reject interferences. I think that is what needs to happen. And if there's anything that the BBI is going to address, is ensure that there's really separation of powers and every office is given the roles, the powers that they should execute, and they deserve without having to, to interfere with the other offices.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm sure even if the 2010 Constitution is fully implemented, that will not be a mirage. Let's cross over to page 8 of the Standard. It's touching on our school-going children right now, and the new rules limit parents' choice for day schools. This might be quite critical in case you have a candidate this particular year. Now, it's proper to note that under the new arrangement, all Form 1s selected to day schools can only pick institutions close to their homes. So, according to Belio Kipsang, parents should be advised, or schools as well, presenting candidates for KCPE, that the choice of the day schools will be based on the parents' or guardians' area of residence. Now, this might actually find your Form 1 child being stuck in a village school if they're set to go to a day school. All 7,000 day secondary schools will now be required to enroll children from within their localities to ensure they can commute daily, in a major plan to position the institutions as a pillar of ambitious reforms in the basic education sector. Gakuia, what do you make of this? I'm sure it will be received with fair share of criticism as well from the parents, but it seems to be all in good faith, right?
Personally, I would say that there could be a choice, because initially it is very well authored that when one belongs to a nearby school, actually to commute is easier,
yes,
and reach the school in time. But also at the same time, we cannot lock out those parents who are capable, or who are also capable to have means of transport to a school that is far away from the locality. Mm-hmm. So therefore, to me, I would say let it be a choice of a parent. If a parent is capable to look for alternative transport to a learner to a decent school, let it be acceptable. And to those who are unable to, actually should give it that option of choosing their neighboring school because of what we call getting to school in time.
Okay. Even as we add our voice, NEC has opened a 2-week window to allow schools to effect these particular changes. But let me bring you in, Mheshimiwa. This is interesting, bearing in mind that they're trying to devoid parents from the huge transport challenges and the students as well. What's your take on this?
I think what we need to understand is that education is still very expensive in Kenya. And there are many parents who can hardly afford, to take their kids to schools. And you remember that the government has been running what is called 100% transition from primary to secondary schools. And this really would require that we make it really affordable for all parents to be able to take their kids to school. If you look at what members of parliament have done, in fact, each and every, if you come to my constituency, for instance, we have every sub-location there's a secondary school. And we are even trying to ensure that every primary school there's a secondary school, so that there's complete 100% transition. So this new rule is, for me, I think is acceptable, because it would ensure that actually the cost of secondary education is going to be really cheapened. Okay. Because it would be easy for you. A child who's gone to the same primary school from class 1 to class 8 would proceed to secondary school in the same school, actually using the same infrastructure, using the same facilities. And in primary schools, when we went to primary schools in the villages, we would normally go back for lunch at our parents' homes. Oh, okay. So again, if this is the situation, then it means we would probably have the cost of secondary education almost free. Because right now, the problem that the parents are facing is the fact that they have to pay for the food, for the bills, for the lunch bills, even for the day scholars. Okay. So I think this arrangement is very affordable, and I think I want to support it and urge Kenyans to embrace it, so that at least we could achieve the government policy of 100% transition to high school.
Well, this is happening even as we try and push for the full implementation of the new 26333 education system. But a lot falls on members of parliament in terms of education, especially with the NGCDF funds. Gentlemen, allow me to ask, has this funds been released, even as we're talking about, actually putting new measures in order to enable 100% transition? Let me start with you, Gakuia.
The position is that the Treasury is broke. And that's the position. That's why up to now, no single penny has been dispersed to CDF kitties. Up to now, this is I believe we are late even to give out bursaries. You find out that whoever has given out bursary is the one who has been at least savings in the last year's budget.
Okay.
Anybody who expected the budget of this financial year actually is dry in his accounts. And therefore, I would urge that, in fact, as we are moving forward, let us also be giving what we call priorities first, because bursaries are priority.
Quite so.
And I believe that, in fact, even though we are not saying disperse everything at a go, disperse what can be able to give a push for the bursaries at this particular time.
All right, Samatandi, what's the situation at Alego Songa?
I think I want to disagree with my colleague. You know, you cannot say that the government is broke. Governments cannot run broke. And if a government is broke, it means the government cannot implement the budget for which members of parliament passed. The Treasury has not come back to us to tell us that, look, you approved this budget, but you don't have resources to fund it. So the question that the government is broke is not right, because we have not been told the government is broke. However, I think there's been a problem in implementing budget this financial year. Budget implementation has been an issue, and it is not only to do with the CDF, it is affecting all the other sectors of the economy. I sit in the budget committee, and I know that COVID has brought a few challenges in the manner of revenue collection, but it has not stopped government from operating. And I think what we are saying is that we urged, and I think we spoke about it in Parliament, and we urged the Treasury CS to release CDF resources for the benefit of our people, because the President already instructed us to use our resources to ensure that COVID protocols are observed. But again, those resources are not being sent to us. So I think the assurance we got recently is that the resources would be released as soon as possible.
As soon as
and
possible.
I think some money has been released already.
All right.
So I think I want to urge my colleagues to take advantage of those resources and implement programs that touch on the learners' welfare.
Okay. Well, we'll definitely delve more deeper into education matters, but that has been highlighted. Make sure you fully inform yourself. Let's cross over to page 12, touching on BBI. And gentlemen, we'll briefly speak about this because you'll cover it in totality later on. 3 ward reps file case over rejection of BBI bill in Baringo County, where the petitioners want the Speaker not to implement the decision of MCAs on the day the referendum proposal was rejected. We definitely saw drama, dissenting voices in terms of what was passed in that particular county. But moving to court, Samatandi, what does this mean in terms of the journey for the Building Bridges Initiative Amendment Bill 2020? What do you make of it?
Well, Rogers, what I think is that BBI was going to raise political undertones in several parts of this country.
Yeah.
And there are even cases where laws have been passed without following procedure and rules. Like the case of Baringo, clearly, you know, there was a lot of, there was violence, there was chaos, you know. So you cannot claim to have passed a law, made a law in such an environment.
No, right. So
I think by some of these MCAs who feel that the procedures were not clearly followed and their rules and standing orders were not followed, I think it is in order for them to go to court so that they can seek for justice. Otherwise, what we want to see is that we want to see county assemblies following their own rules. You know, they have standing orders, they have their own rules, and they cannot pass laws if they do not follow their rules.
Okay.
And in this case, even as I watched the Baringo County Assembly going through this debate and going through this bill, it was very clear that they did not follow their own rules. And therefore, I think a competent court should actually nullify that process so that it can be done afresh.
Okay.
Secondly, as you know, BBI has been politicized. And some of us have been saying that we need to separate BBI from politics, 22 elections. So for the county assemblies that are going through the bill, I think we want to urge them to avoid politics, to look at the content of the BBI bill, and to ensure that the decisions they take is not compromised by their political leanings or their ethnic orientation, because, you know, BBI is going to be, county assemblies within the Kalenjin Rift Valley region, North Rift and South Rift, are likely to oppose BBI because they've been told that BBI is supposed to stop William Ruto from becoming the president of the Republic of Kenya.
Oh, well.
So I think these are some of the arguments that we need to demystify so that we look at BBI as a process which is aimed at engineering Kenya as a country.
Okay. James Gakuia, it's interesting, separating politics from the true contents of BBI is definitely a hard task ahead. What do you envision for the journey of BBI, not just in Rift Valley? We can highlight the rest of the counties even as they kick up the process.
My take on this is that BBI is a bill like any other bill, and the process that it takes is the legal process.
Yeah.
And I believe that, in fact, even though they are petitioners in Baringo Resort, at the end of the day, whether the courts will rule pro or against the petitioners, at the end of the day, what will matter is a vote in the floor. And at least there is no way, if the majority voted no, I don't think that actually, even though they are persuaded in which way, they will still vote no. And still at the end of the day, the answer will be, Baringo will remain no. But not this having the case, I would say, as three court benches pronounce themselves for at least temporarily out of the process, it does not stop the counties to proceed with their debate to the same.
Okay.
Equally, the rest of the parliament and the Senate. I would say we need to leave the counties to play their role because they are mature enough and they are elected to represent. The duty is within themselves. Let us give them at least democracy to operationalize their views and vote either against or pro. And the result depends on what they feel within themselves. I think numbers works, and that's why, even though Baringo are in petition, the numbers, according to how it was, the numbers won. And therefore, can we leave the counties to do their exercise with a lot of freedom, and therefore give Kenyans what the Kenyans expect?
Okay. Even though I credit it does definitely need to happen within the law, because the proceedings did contravene provisions of Section 9 of the County Governments Act. That's according to the petitioners. Perhaps give us your voice before we cross over. Yes.
Let me say something. I think these the petitioners have a very strong case. If from what I'm reading here, I think this case is very strong, and this the decision is going to be annulled by the court.
Okay,
the case is very strong because first of all, they did not even conduct public participation as required.
Yes.
I think the speaker just ruled that, you know, the Baringo people do not want BBI, and there was no way where even the public was engaged. So I think this is a very strong case here, which I think other county assemblies that are still going through this bill, they should be able to follow, to check with what is happening here. And if they contravene they continue to contravene their own rules, then, you know, all of them are going to be nullified by courts. And I want to urge courts to be vigilant and check the constitutionality of the laws that have been made. Even as in National Assembly, you remember that about more than 50 laws that we passed were annulled by the courts because we did not consult the Senate as required by the Constitution.
Well, it definitely...
So I think it's in the same spirit that the petitioners are going to argue.
Okay.
Yes.
It definitely needs to happen within the law. Let me introduce PMG Junguna, who is just joining us. He is a political analyst. Many thanks for your time and welcome to the broadcast. I'd like to pick your mind on this particular matter before we highlight what other issues that are covered in the dailies. The BBI and public participation has been an issue as well in terms of this particular drive in the counties. What's your take on the public participation aspect? Because it definitely needs to happen within the constraints of the law. Well, what's your take on this?
Thank you very much. Apologies, I missed the way to this place.
No problem.
Article 10 of the Constitution, public participation is critical and paramount. Advisory Rules 2014 of the Supreme Court, Advisory Rule number 340, public interest. it is no longer about county government interest. It is no longer about MCA's interest. The moment the rule and the Constitution compels public participation, it must demonstrate public interest have been discovered.
But how exactly should this happen in counties?
They are the process that are absolutely necessary.
Yes.
There must be notice of 7 days. They must be taken over through the draft bill. Then they must vote for the draft bill at the county level, at the assembly level. Wherever they were meeting or about to meet, it was an educative process to inform the public, to allow them to participate, and to allow them declare their public interest.
All right.
The chaos in Baringo, that was not public interest.
Okay.
It was the conflict of MCAs, Kiwereweke and Tagataga, that thought the bill belongs to them. The bill does not belong to them. Any county assembly that is going to engage in fist fights in the process of stopping BBI is bound to fail, and it must fail. Because again, it was not their bill. The capacity of the MCAs to educate the public, the capacity of the public to consume the bill, the capacity of the public to express their interest based on what has been taken through counts. That's why every county assembly that is going to go into fist fights to defeat one group or another must fail through a constitutional process.
Okay, that's really proper, and we'll definitely continue highlighting the journey of BBI in the counties. But something that touches closer home to the members of parliament, and it's highlighted on the Daily Nation. Let me just read it out loud for you. On page 6, there seems to be a bill that is seeking to make the Ruto hustler talk a crime, and it's a big blow to the DP, which had fashioned their campaign. The camp rather had fashioned its campaign around the Houseless versus Dynasties narrative of economic struggle. Now, this will definitely be a blow right there, and it seems to touch on various laws that might be contravened in terms of the talk of Houseless versus Dynasties, imposing several fines and jail time, and makes it a basis of removal from office for any leader who propagates class divisions in the country. Gakuia, do you believe in the talk of Houseless versus Dynasties, that it actually contributes to this class division? And perhaps what will be your reception to this bill?
One is that in politics, one has to look for his own way of hyping the people. You remember very well, during Kibaki's in later 2007, 2008, there was what we call Kazi Endele, and there was another narrative which was Kazi Ianze. So Kazi Kwanza, that was quite not very common narrative, because to start, it means that you are starting afresh, and it's like you are starting from the scratch. At this particular juncture, we have this issue to do with the nation, what we call Hustler Nation. Hustler Nation, it may be taken as if it is dividing the nation in what we call two clusters of dynasty and the clusters of who have and who have not. But to me, this is not the way. And even though the government will intend to bring such a bill, the bill will not, it will just ruin that particular saying of Hustler Nation. But that would not ruin the followers to join their person. At the end of the day, the followers will not miss their church. And therefore, you may say that, yes, that particular language is not good, but the language may stop. But the frogs, you find them following their shepherd.
So it doesn't push for class divisions, according to you?
To me, it does not. Because sincerely, it does not mean that because I have something, I have a personal car, and you are my neighbor you don't have, that we are going to fight. It is not the case at all.
Well, many might argue the same way, because there's been so many lingo in terms of politics, and it's not the first time we're seeing this. But even as I go to you, Sama Tandi, I mean, we have the NCIC Act, which has been enforced, but it seems to be criticized as being quite lineal in terms of punishment for acts of violence and misdemeanors. What do you mention about this whole issue about the bill?
I think the bill should go through, and I'm going to support it when it comes to the floor of the House for two reasons. One, the hustler narrative is already divisive. It has created political divisions in the country, where people who do not have money think that the rich should share the rich should share the resources with them. And you've seen how the jobless youth across the country have behaved in rallies. They have been. This hustler narrative has been everywhere, and wherever you go, people think that they should begin to take your resources. And I even saw cases where some vehicles have been burnt. In small scenarios, even of an accident, involving this border and the rest. So I think this narrative should be, banned completely through the bill that is before the House. And secondly, it is being championed by people who are truly not hustlers. If you look at my colleagues in the Tanga team that are running around the country preaching hustlers, they arrive in choppers and in big fuel guzzlers. And then after that, you see, some two youths carrying a wheelbarrow, to show the deputy president that, this is the hustler region, we are hustler people. So I think it's people taking advantage of the joblessness in this country, and these are leaders who are supposed to participate in creating opportunities for the same youth. They are actually inciting them, they are making them, giving them a narrative that is actually going to make them poisonous even for the future of this country. So I think this bill, we should come to the floor of the House, and we are going to support it, and this narrative should be completely banned, because we are talking about national cohesion. We are talking about the unity of Kenya. We are talking about getting Kenya as a place where each and every person, whether you are rich, whether you are poor, you're supposed to take advantage of the economy in the country. Right. So I think this bill should come, and we are going to support it. And we want to urge leaders, especially the deputy president, and his team, that they are part of leadership. They sit in cabinet. They are part of policy making of this country, of this government. What are they waiting for? Why are they telling us that they can only wait and make policies in 2020 after he becomes the president? Why can't he do it now? Because he has the space, he has the latitude, he sits in cabinet, he sits in government. So I think let us ban it completely, and we are going to support it. Okay,
well, let's see. PMG Juguna, what do you make of this? Because there's a borderline between political rhetoric and incitement. We've had rhetoric like nasa hao, hatujui hao ni nani, but the masses will definitely be carried away with this. And then comes the Houseless and Dynasties narrative. How do you break this down in terms of incitement and just political rhetoric? Because at the end of the day, politics is definitely to sway the masses. What do you make of this?
Kenyans must go back to the history of 2007, 2008. Remember the slogan, Madoadoa. The Madoadoa syndrome was interpreted to mean we don't want strangers in Rift Valley. But when it went to Hague, the argument by Karif Khan, the current now prosecutor, yes, he argued that it was used to, we don't want many parties. But the conception of the public was totally different. It is, you cannot be able to control the conception of the Kenyans now. Their interpretation for hustler is totally different from the interpretation of what it was meant for, empowering the youth, empowering the informal sector. That meaning is not with the public. I want to draw your attention to the 18th century philosophy of Karl Marx, and what we used to run in the university, the bourgeoisie versus proletariat, or the proletariat versus bourgeoisie. It was the classification of the society into who and who has not. Yes. The theory for Karl Marx was the poverty circle. The poor are going to remain poor. He gravitated towards informing the workers that the bourgeoisies own the land, they own the labor, they own the capital, they get the profit, you get nothing. It gravitated towards Leninism. And from Leninism, it went to communism. Yes. From communism in East Africa, we came to Ujamaism. Ujamaism was actually adapted by Odinga. You remember the building of Russian hospital? Yes. That is, the Russian communism socialistic approach was given by Odinga and Jaramogi.
Okay.
And the have and have nots went also to J.M. Kariuki, when he said this country is a country of 10 millionaires and 10 million. That syndrome of the fact that the poor have roasted because of the rich, it is now taking shape. Jomo Kenyatta, realizing that, came with sessional paper number 1 of 1966, African socialism, the Harambeism. And currently, you had the Kenya we want.
All right.
In 1979. And we have got the Wealth Fund, we have got the Youth Fund, we have got the Women Fund, we have got all manner of funds now injected into the society. We developed most cooperative institutions in the country, the cooperatives and the social. Kenyatta came with the cooperatives. We bought RADs in the Rift Valley. Kikuyus endeared themselves. Communities came together. Now, it is the poverty circle now, the Marxist theory was broken, where you are poor, but you can escape the circle through cooperatives, through social circles, through government funds, through devolved funds. Article, if you look at the bill now, item 50.
As you conclude, yeah?
Yes, as I conclude, you realize that the distribution, the Article 203 of the Constitution, current Constitution, is now merged with Article 43. Article 43 says everybody has got a right, economic rights. The hustler has got economic rights. The poor, how will he get those rights? By equal distribution of the country's wealth. The one man, one vote, one shilling. It is now reduced that no county can have more than 3.
Yes.
Three times. So that there is almost equal distribution.
Okay, so equal distribution definitely also removes so much emphasis on the man in charge of the presidency as well. Well, we'll definitely delve deeper into this after the short break. Gentlemen, many thanks for taking us through the dailies. Of course, other stories have been highlighted in the dailies. Make sure you grab a self of your copy to be adequately informed. We take that short break. We'll be back with Political Point. A lot has happened in terms of politics. Stay with us for this.